The August sun beat down on the abandoned lot like a furnace, and 17-year-old Claire Mitchell could barely breathe as she stumbled through the overgrown weeds searching for shade. She had been homeless for 8 months now, ever since the car accident that took her parents, and every day was a battle just to survive. But nothing could have prepared her for what she was about to find on this scorching afternoon in Austin, Texas. At first, she thought her eyes were playing tricks on her in the heat. But as she got closer, the terrible reality came into focus. A police officer lay on the ground, his hands bound behind his back with zip ties, his face red and swollen from the sun. Next to him, 2 German Shepherd K9s were tied to a metal pole, panting desperately, their tongues hanging out as they struggled against their restraints. The temperature had to be at least 140 degrees in the direct sunlight, and all 3 of them were clearly in danger of dying from heat stroke. Claire felt her heart slam against her chest. Her first instinct was to run and get help, but she knew there was no time. The officer's lips were cracked and bleeding, his uniform soaked through with sweat. The dogs were barely moving, their bodies trembling. She had maybe minutes to act before it was too late. Every second counted, and despite having nothing to her name except the clothes on her back and a small backpack with her few possessions, she knew she had to try. She dropped to her knees beside the officer, her hands shaking as she examined the zip ties binding his wrists. They were thick plastic, pulled tight enough to cut into his skin. His eyes fluttered open briefly, unfocused and confused, and he tried to speak but only managed a hoarse whisper. Claire looked around frantically for something sharp, anything that could cut through the restraints. The dogs whimpered weakly, their dark eyes pleading with her. "Hold on," Claire said, though she wasn't sure if anyone could even hear her. "Just hold on. I'm going to help you." She spotted a piece of broken glass near an old tire and grabbed it carefully, wrapping one end in the edge of her thin t-shirt to protect her hand. The glass was sharp enough, but cutting through the zip ties while the officer's wrists were bound so tightly was going to be difficult and dangerous. One wrong move and she could seriously hurt him. But leaving them here to die was not an option. Claire began sawing at the plastic, sweat dripping down her face and stinging her eyes. The sun was relentless, and she could feel her own body starting to weaken from the heat. She hadn't eaten since yesterday morning, and her water bottle had been empty since noon. But she kept working, kept cutting, driven by something deeper than her own suffering. This was someone's husband, someone's father maybe. These were loyal animals who had served their community. They deserved to live. The first zip tie finally snapped, and Claire moved quickly to the officer's ankles. He was starting to lose consciousness again, his body going limp. She worked faster, her fingers bleeding now from where the glass had slipped and cut her. Finally, both restraints were off, and she moved to the dogs. Max and Duke, she read on their police vests. The dogs were in bad shape, barely responsive as she cut through the ropes, holding them to the metal pole. The pole itself was so hot it burned her skin when she accidentally touched it. Once they were free, she half-dragged, half-carried the officer toward a small patch of shade under a scraggly tree about 20 feet away. It wasn't much, but it was better than the direct sun. Then she went back for the dogs, pulling them one at a time to the shade. Her muscles screamed in protest, and her vision started to blur. But she couldn't stop now. She needed water, and fast. Her own bottle was empty, but she remembered seeing a convenience store about 3 blocks away. It would mean leaving them alone, but it was their only chance. Claire forced herself to stand, her legs wobbling beneath her. The world spun sickeningly, but she steadied herself against the tree. She had to make it to that store and back before it was too late. Taking one last look at the officer and the dogs lying motionless in the shade, she turned and ran. Should someone who has nothing still give everything to save a stranger? Drop a comment below and subscribe to see how this incredible act of courage changes everyone's life forever. Claire's lungs burned as she sprinted down the cracked sidewalk toward the convenience store, her worn sneakers slapping against the pavement with each desperate step. The heat rising from the concrete made the air shimmer, and twice she nearly stumbled, but she forced herself to keep moving. 3 blocks felt like 3 miles in this weather, and every second that passed was a second those innocent lives were slipping away. The bell above the store door chimed as she burst inside, and the blast of air conditioning hit her like a physical force. The clerk, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, looked up in alarm at Claire's disheveled appearance and frantic expression. "Please, Claire gasped, barely able to form words. I need water. Emergency. People dying. Heat. The clerk came around the counter quickly, taking in Claire's bleeding hands and sun-scorched face. Without asking questions, she grabbed 3 large bottles of water from a cooler and thrust them into Claire's arms. Go, the woman said firmly. Don't worry about paying. Just go help them. Claire wanted to thank her properly, but there was no time. She clutched the bottles to her chest and ran back out into the brutal heat. Her body protested every step, her vision tunneling from exhaustion and dehydration, but she pushed through the pain. Officer Harrison and those dogs needed her. They were depending on her. When she finally made it back to the abandoned lot, she dropped to her knees beside the officer and unscrewed one of the water bottles with trembling hands. His eyes were closed, and for a terrifying moment, she thought she was too late. But when she gently lifted his head and brought the bottle to his lips, he stirred slightly. Water dribbled down his chin at first, but then he began to drink in small, desperate sips. Slowly, Claire whispered, though said softly, You're safe now. I'm going to call for help. She pulled out, but she had kept it for emergencies. This definitely qualified. Her fingers shook as she dialed 911, and when the operator answered, the words came tumbling out in a rush. I found a police officer and 2 K9s tied up in an abandoned lot off East 7th Street near the railroad tracks. They were left in the sun. They need medical help right away. Heat stroke. Please hurry. The operator asked her to stay on the line, asking questions about the officer's condition and the exact location. Claire answered as best she could while continuing to monitor Officer Harrison and the dogs. The operator assured her that help was on the way, with an ambulance and police units already dispatched. While they waited, Claire sat in the shade with her 3 patients, talking softly to keep the officer conscious. She learned his name was Brett Harrison, and he had been with the Austin Police Department for 12 years. He didn't remember much about the attack, just that he had been investigating a call about suspicious activity in this area when someone came up behind him. Everything after that was a blur. You saved my life, Brett managed to say, his voice still hoarse but stronger than before. You saved Max and Duke too. Who are you? My name is Claire, she answered simply. She didn't mention that she was homeless, that she had been sleeping in abandoned buildings and scraping by on whatever food she could find. That didn't matter right now. All that mattered was that he and the dogs were going to be okay. The sound of sirens in the distance made relief flood through Claire's body. They had made it. Help was coming. But as the adrenaline began to fade, the reality of her own condition hit her hard. The world started to tilt and spin, dark spots dancing at the edges of her vision. She had given almost all the water to Brett and the dogs, had pushed her already depleted body past its limits in the extreme heat. Claire. Brett's voice sounded far away now. Claire, stay with me. But the darkness was pulling her down, and she couldn't fight it anymore. The last thing she remembered before everything went black was the sound of sirens getting closer and Brett calling her name. Claire woke up to the steady beep of HOSP monitors and the cool touch of N4 in her arm. The room was dim and quiet, and for a moment she panicked, not remembering where she was or how she had gotten there. Then the memories came flooding back. The officer, the dogs, the heat, the rescue. You awake, a gentle voice said from beside her bed. Claire turned her head to see a nurse with auburn hair adjusting her for. You've been out for about 6 hours. You gave us quite a scare, young lady. Severe dehydration and heat exhaustion. Your body temperature was dangerously high when they brought you in. The officer, Claire croaked, her throat still dry despite the 4 fluids. The dogs. Are they okay? The nurse smiled warmly. Officer Harrison and both K9s are going to be fine, thanks to you. They are being treated in the other wing. The dogs are already recovering well, and Officer Harrison has been asking about you constantly. He insisted we give you the best care possible. Claire felt tears prick her eyes, but she blinked them back. She wasn't used to people caring what happened to her. Not since her parents died. Not since she had ended up on the streets with nowhere to go and no one to help her. The system had failed her at every turn, and she had learned to expect nothing from anyone. There are some police officers who want to talk to you when you're feeling up to it, the nurse continued. They need to get your statement about what happened. But they can wait until tomorrow if you need more rest. I can talk to them now, Claire said, trying to sit up. Everything still hurt, but she needed to know more about what had happened. Who would tie up a police officer and leave him to die like that? And why? The nurse helped her adjust the bed so she could sit up comfortably, then stepped out to get the detectives. A few minutes later, two people in plain clothes entered the room. The woman was in her 40s with sharp, intelligent eyes, and the man was younger, maybe early 30s, with a notebook in his hand. Claire Mitchell, the woman said, extending her hand. I'm Detective Angela Roberts, and this is my partner, Detective James Miller. We want to thank you for what you did today. Officer Harrison is alive because of your quick thinking and bravery. Claire shook her hand weakly. I just did what anyone would do. That's where you're wrong, Detective Miller said, his voice kind but serious. Most people wouldn't have stopped. Most people wouldn't have had the courage or the strength to do what you did, especially given your own circumstances. Claire looked away, feeling exposed. They knew she was homeless. Of course they knew. The hospital probably had all her information now, or rather, her lack of information. No permanent address. No insurance. No family. Detective Roberts pulled up a chair and sat down. Claire, we need to understand exactly what you saw and when you found Officer Harrison. Every detail could be important to catching whoever did this. Claire told them everything she could remember, from the moment she had stumbled into the abandoned lot looking for shade to cutting the zip ties and getting water from the convenience store. She described the scene as accurately as possible, though the heat and stress had made some details fuzzy. Did you see anyone else in the area? Detective Miller asked. Any vehicles, any sounds, anything that seemed out of place? Claire thought hard, but she shook her head. I was alone. The whole area was deserted. That's why I go there sometimes, because no one bothers me. The detectives exchanged a glance, and Claire sensed they were communicating something she couldn't quite read. Detective Roberts leaned forward, her expression softening. Claire, we've been looking into your background. We know you've been on your own for 8 months now. We know about the accident that took your parents, and we know you've been sleeping rough since then. What I don't understand is how someone like you, a 17-year-old girl with nowhere to go and barely anything to survive on, thought to risk your own life for complete strangers. The question hung in the air, and Claire struggled to find the right words. How could she explain that even though life had been cruel to her, even though she had every reason to be bitter and selfish, she couldn't just walk away from someone in need? How could she tell them that her parents had raised her to believe in helping others, and that was one of the few things she had left of them? My mom always said that kindness doesn't cost anything, Claire finally answered, her voice barely above a whisper. She said that even when you have nothing, you can still give hope to someone else. I guess I just remembered that today. Detective Roberts' eyes grew misty, and even Detective Miller had to clear his throat. They asked a few more questions about the specifics of the scene, took notes, and promised to keep her updated on the investigation. Before they left, Detective Roberts paused at the door. You're a hero, Claire Mitchell. The whole department is talking about you. Officer Harrison wants to see you as soon as the doctors allow it. And Claire, I don't think you should be living on the streets anymore. We're going to make sure you get the help you deserve. After they left, Claire lay back against the pillows, exhausted but unable to sleep. The nurse had mentioned that Officer Harrison had insisted she receive the best care. What did that mean? Would the hospital send her a bill she could never pay? Would she be back on the streets as soon as they discharged her? But underneath the worry, there was something else. A tiny flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, things could be different now. That her act of kindness might somehow open a door that had been closed for so long. While Claire rested in her hospital room, the Austin Police Department was moving at full speed to find out who had attacked one of their own. The security footage from nearby businesses was being reviewed, witness statements were being collected, and a team of detectives was working around the clock to piece together what had happened. Chief Tom Bradley stood in the conference room, looking at the case board, his jaw tight with anger and concern. In his 30 years on the force, he had never seen anything like this. Attacking a police officer was serious enough, but leaving him and 2 K9s to die in the heat showed a level of cruelty that was hard to comprehend. What do we know so far? He asked Detective Roberts, who had just returned from interviewing Claire. Officer Harrison was responding to a call about suspicious activity near the abandoned lot on East 7th, Angela explained, pointing to a map on the board. The call came in at 1:47 p.m. from an untraceable burner phone. We think it was a setup from the start. When he arrived with Max and Duke, someone ambushed him from behind. He remembers at least 2 people, maybe 3, but the attack was so fast he didn't get a good look at anyone. Motive? Chief Bradley asked. That's what we're trying to figure out, Detective Miller chimed in. Harrison hasn't made any major arrests lately that would warrant this kind of revenge. His cases have been mostly routine patrol work and community engagement. We're looking into whether this could be gang-related or connected to the drug operations in that area. The chief nodded slowly, his mind working through the possibilities. And the girl who found him, Claire Mitchell. Tell me about her. Detective Roberts pulled out her notes. 17 years old, born and raised in Austin. Both parents died in a car accident 8 months ago. Her father was a construction worker, her mother a dental hygienist. No extended family that we can locate. She was in foster care briefly, but she ran away after 3 weeks. Been living on the streets ever since. Why did she run from foster care? The chief asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. The foster system was overwhelmed and underfunded, and too many kids fell through the cracks. The file says she had conflicts with the foster family and felt unsafe. No details beyond that. She's been surviving on her own, trying to stay under the radar. Before the accident, she was an honor student at Austin High School. Teachers describe her as bright, motivated, and kind. Chief Bradley shook his head, troubled by the waste of potential. A smart kid with her whole life ahead of her, reduced to sleeping in abandoned buildings because the system failed her. And yet, even in her desperate situation, she had found the strength and compassion to save 3 lives. We need to do something for her, he said firmly. She saved Harrison's life and the lives of those K9s. If she hadn't come along when she did, we'd be planning a funeral right now instead of an investigation. The department owes her a debt we can never fully repay. Officer Harrison has already expressed the same sentiment, Angela said. He wants to help her, wants to make sure she doesn't go back to living on the streets. His wife Jennifer is on board too. They are talking about having her stay with them, at least temporarily. The chief considered this. Brett Harrison was a good man, one of the best officers on the force. If he was willing to open his home to Claire, that spoke volumes about the kind of person she must be. But it also presented complications. Claire was a minor, and there were legal considerations to think about. Get in touch with Child Protective Services, Chief Bradley instructed. See what we need to do to make that happen properly. In the meantime, make sure the hospital knows that all of her medical expenses are covered. The department will take care of it through our community fund. Over the next several hours, the investigation began to yield results. Security footage from a pawn shop 2 blocks from the abandoned lot showed 2 men in hooded sweatshirts walking toward the area around the time Officer Harrison was attacked. Their faces weren't visible, but the footage was being analyzed for any identifying features or characteristics. A search of the abandoned lot had turned up the zip ties that had bound Harrison, along with some cigarette butts and a torn piece of fabric that might have come from one of the attackers. Everything was being processed for DNA and fingerprints. We've also been interviewing people who frequent that area, Detective Miller reported during the evening briefing. Several homeless individuals say they've seen suspicious activity there over the past few weeks. Sounds like someone might have been using that lot as a meeting spot for drug deals or stolen goods transactions. So Harrison stumbled onto something he wasn't supposed to see, the chief concluded. And they decided to make an example of him. That's our working theory, Angela confirmed. We're cross-referencing known criminals in the area with the physical descriptions we have. It's not much to go on, but we're making progress. As the team continued working, word about Claire's heroism spread throughout the police department and then into the wider community. Local news stations picked up the story, and by evening, Claire's act of bravery was being reported across Austin and beyond. The details were carefully controlled to protect her privacy, but the essential facts were there. A homeless teenage girl had risked her own life to save a police officer and 2 K9s from dying in the extreme heat. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The police department's phone lines lit up with calls from people wanting to help Claire. Donations started pouring in. Local businesses offered job opportunities. Churches and community organizations reached out with offers of housing assistance, clothing, and food. It seemed that everyone wanted to be part of giving this brave young woman a second chance at life. Chief Bradley looked at the stack of messages and felt something he hadn't felt in a long time in this job. Hope. Maybe this tragedy that almost happened could turn into something beautiful. Maybe Claire's kindness would inspire others to be better, to do more, to care about the people who often went unseen and unheard. Let's make sure we get this right, he told his team. Claire Mitchell deserves the best we can give her. And whoever did this to Harrison and those dogs is going to answer for it. I want everyone on this case working day and night until we have someone in custody. The detectives nodded, their determination matching his own. Justice would be served, and kindness would be rewarded. That was the way things should work, even if it didn't always happen that way in reality. Claire spent 2 more days in the hospital recovering, and during that time, her world began to shift in ways she could never have imagined. The doctors wanted to make sure her kidneys and other organs hadn't been damaged by the severe dehydration, but the test results came back better than expected. Her body was young and resilient, capable of bouncing back despite months of poor nutrition and stress. On the morning of the 3rd day, a nurse came in with a smile and some news. "You have visitors, Claire. Officer Harrison and his wife are here to see you. Are you up for company?" Claire's heart jumped. She had been thinking about Brett Harrison constantly since waking up, wondering how he was doing and if he truly remembered what had happened. Part of her worried that once he was fully recovered, he would forget all about the homeless girl who had helped him. People made promises all the time that they didn't keep. "Yes," she said, smoothing down her hospital gown self-consciously. "I'd like to see them." Brett Harrison walked in a moment later looking much better than the last time she had seen him. The redness and swelling in his face had gone down, and though he still moved a bit stiffly, he was clearly on the mend. Behind him came a woman with warm brown eyes and shoulder-length blonde hair, dressed in casual clothes and carrying a small bouquet of colorful flowers. "Claire," Brett said, his voice thick with emotion. He approached her bed and carefully took her hand. "I don't even know how to begin to thank you. The doctors told me that if you hadn't found me when you did, I wouldn't have made it another hour. You saved my life. You saved Max and Duke. You're a hero." Claire felt her cheeks flush. "I'm not a hero. I just did what needed to be done." "That's exactly what makes you a hero," the woman said, stepping forward. "I'm Jennifer Harrison, Brett's wife. And I want you to know that what you did for my husband means everything to me and our 2 kids. You gave us our dad back. You gave me my husband back." She placed the flowers on the bedside table, and then surprised Claire by pulling her into a gentle hug. Claire stiffened at first, not used to physical affection anymore, but then she relaxed into it. When was the last time someone had hugged her like this? When was the last time someone had cared? "How are Max and Duke?" Claire asked when Jennifer finally released her. "They are doing great," Brett said with a grin. "Already back to their usual selves, begging for treats and wanting to play. They are both eager to meet you properly once you're out of here. I swear those dogs know you saved them. They are going to love you forever." They talked for a while about the rescue, about the investigation, and about how the community had responded to the news. Claire listened in amazement as Brett described the outpouring of support and offers of help that had come in for her. It seemed impossible that so many people cared about what happened to her. Then Brett and Jennifer exchanged a look, and Claire sensed they had something important to say. Her stomach tightened with a mixture of hope and anxiety. "Claire," Jennifer began, sitting down in the chair beside the bed. "Brett and I have been talking a lot over the past couple of days. We know you've been on your own since your parents passed away. We know you've been struggling to survive. And we think that's completely unacceptable. Someone as brave and kind as you deserves so much better. We want you to come stay with us," Brett said directly, his blue eyes serious and sincere. "We have a guest room that's just sitting empty. Our kids, Sophie and Ben, are excited to meet you. Jennifer is a teacher, so she can help you get back into school and catch up on anything you've missed. We want to help you get back on your feet, help you build a future for yourself." Claire stared at them, unable to process what she was hearing. live with them. In a real house with a real family. It seemed too good to be true, like a dream she might wake up from at any moment. She had learned not to trust in good things because they always seemed to dissipate. "I don't understand," she whispered. "Why would you do that for me? You don't even know me." "We know enough," Jennifer said firmly. "We know you're the kind of person who risks everything to save strangers. We know you have nowhere else to go. And we know that every young person deserves a chance to succeed in life. We're not saints, Claire. We're just a family that believes in helping others when we can. And right now, we can help you." "What if it doesn't work out?" Claire asked, voicing her deepest fear. "What if I'm too much trouble or too difficult to deal with? What if you change your mind?" Brett leaned forward, his expression gentle but determined. "Then we figure it out together, like families do. But I don't think that's going to happen. You've already shown us who you are, Claire. You're strong and brave and good-hearted. That's not going to change just because you're living under our roof. We're not asking you to be perfect. We're just asking you to give yourself a chance at a better life." Tears started streaming down Claire's face before she could stop them. All the grief and fear and loneliness she had been holding in for 8 months came pouring out. Jennifer moved to the bed and held her while she cried, rubbing her back and making soothing sounds. "It's okay," Jennifer murmured. "Let it out. You've been through so much, and you've been so strong for so long. You don't have to be strong alone anymore." When Claire finally got herself under control, she wiped her eyes and looked at both of them through her tears. "Are you sure? Really sure?" "Absolutely sure," Brett said. "We've already talked to Child Protective Services and started the paperwork to become your temporary guardians. The police department is behind this too. Chief Bradley personally called to say the department will help with any expenses you need, like clothes, school supplies, whatever you need to get your life back on track." "And there's more," Jennifer added with a smile. "The police department wants to hold a ceremony to honor you for your bravery. They want to give you a civilian award and formally recognize what you did. The whole community wants to celebrate you, Claire. You've inspired so many people with your kindness and courage." Claire couldn't speak. Her throat was too tight, her heart too full. For the first time in 8 months, she felt something other than despair. She felt hope. Real, tangible hope that maybe her life could be different. That maybe she could have a future after all. "I'll stay with you," she finally managed to say. "I'll try my best not to let you down." "You could never let us down," Brett said warmly. "Welcome to the family, Claire." 3 days later, Claire walked out of the hospital wearing donated clothes from a local charity and carrying a small bag with a few personal items that well-wishers had brought for her. Brett and Jennifer were there to pick her up, and their kids, 10-year-old Sophie and 8-year-old Ben, bounced excitedly in the back seat of the family SUV. "We made welcome home signs for you," Sophie announced proudly as Claire climbed into the passenger seat. "And Mom baked cookies. Chocolate chip. They're your favorite, right? Everyone likes chocolate chip." Claire smiled, touched by the enthusiasm. "They sound perfect. Thank you." The drive to the Harrison house took about 20 minutes, winding through neighborhoods that Claire recognized but had never really been part of. These were the places where normal families lived, where kids played in yards and people had barbecues on weekends. She had walked through areas like this before when she was homeless, always feeling like an outsider looking in at a life she could never have again. But now she was going to be part of it, at least for a while. The thought was both thrilling and terrifying. The Harrison home was a modest 2-story house painted blue with white trim, located in a quiet neighborhood with tree-lined streets. It wasn't fancy or oversized, but it looked warm and welcoming, with flower boxes in the windows and a swing set in the backyard visible from the driveway. "Home sweet home," Jennifer said as she pulled into the garage. "Come on, let me show you your room." Claire followed the family inside, taking in the comfortable living room with its warm but cozy furniture, the kitchen that smelled like fresh cookies, and the family photos covering the walls. This was a home full of love and life, and Claire felt a lump form in her throat again. The guest room was upstairs, next to Sophie's room. It was small but bright, with pale green walls, a twin bed with a cheerful quilt, a desk by the window, and a dresser that Jennifer had already filled with donated clothes in Claire's size. There were even a few books on the nightstand and a lamp with a soft glow. "It's not much," Jennifer said, sounding almost apologetic. "But it's yours for as long as you need it. We can decorate it however you want, paint the walls a different color if you'd like." "It's perfect," Claire said honestly. "It's more than I ever expected." Over the next few days, Claire began to settle into a routine that felt strange and wonderful at the same time. She had a bed to sleep in, 3 meals a day, and people who actually cared about her well-being. Jennifer helped her enroll in online classes so she could finish her high school diploma and eventually return to regular school. Brett took her shopping for clothes and school supplies, refusing to let her feel guilty about the cost. "The community fund is covering all of this," he explained. "People have donated thousands of dollars specifically to help you. They want to see you succeed, Claire. Let them help." The police department ceremony was scheduled for the following week, and the media attention only grew as the date approached. Reporters wanted to interview Claire, news stations wanted to feature her story, and social media was buzzing with posts about the brave homeless girl who had saved a police officer's life. Claire found it all overwhelming, but the Harrisons helped shield her from the worst of it while still allowing her to share her story when she felt comfortable. What amazed Claire most was how the community continued to rally around her. Local businesses offered her part-time job opportunities for when she was ready. A nearby community college reached out to say they would waive tuition if she wanted to attend after getting her high school diploma. Churches and civic organizations invited her to speak about her experience, offering honorariums that would help her save money for the future. "Why are people being so kind to me?" Claire asked Jennifer one evening as they sat together in the kitchen having tea. "I don't deserve all this attention." Jennifer set down her mug and looked at Claire seriously. "You deserve every bit of it. What you did reminded people that there's still goodness in the world, that there are still people who care about others even when they have nothing. You gave people hope, Claire. That's a precious gift." On Saturday, Brett took Claire to the police station to meet Max and Duke properly. The 2 German shepherds bounded up to her the moment they saw her, tails wagging frantically, and Claire found herself laughing and crying at the same time as they covered her face with dog kisses. The K9 handlers told her that the dogs had been asking about her in their own way, getting excited whenever they heard her name mentioned. "They remember you," Brett said, watching the joyful reunion. "Animals know when someone has saved their life. You're part of their pack now." Claire spent an hour playing with Max and Duke in the training yard, throwing balls and watching them show off their skills. For the first time in months, she felt truly happy. Not just content or surviving, but genuinely happy. It was a feeling she had thought she might never experience again. That evening, as the family sat down for dinner together, Claire looked around the table at the faces that had become so dear to her in such a short time. Sophie was telling a funny story about something that happened at school. Ben was trying to sneak a piece of chicken to the family cat under the table. Jennifer and Brett were listening with patient smiles, occasionally correcting or encouraging their kids. This was what family looked like. This was what home felt like. And somehow, miraculously, she was part of it now. "Thank you," Claire said suddenly, interrupting Sophie's story. "I need to say thank you. For everything. For taking me in, for believing in me, for giving me a chance. I promise I'll work hard and make you proud." Brett reached over and squeezed her hand. "You already make us proud, Claire. Every single day. You're part of this family now, and families stick together no matter what." Sophie reached across the table and grabbed Claire's other hand, and then Ben joined in, and suddenly they were all holding hands around the table, connected in a circle of love and support. In that moment, Claire understood what her mother had meant about kindness. It really didn't cost anything, but it could change everything. The day of the police department ceremony arrived with clear skies and warm sunshine, though not the brutal, dangerous heat that had nearly claimed 3 lives weeks earlier. Claire stood in the bathroom of the Harrison house, staring at her reflection in the mirror and barely recognizing the person looking back at her. Jennifer had taken her shopping for a special outfit for the occasion, and Claire now wore a blue dress that brought out her eyes, along with new shoes and a simple necklace that had belonged to Jennifer's mother. Her hair had been trimmed and styled, and someone from the local salon had volunteered to do her makeup. She looked healthy and clean and cared for, nothing like the desperate, sunburned girl who had stumbled through an abandoned lot searching for shade. "You look beautiful," Jennifer said from the doorway, her eyes misty. "Are you ready for this?" Claire took a deep breath. "I think so. I'm nervous." "That's completely normal. But remember, everyone there is on your side. They are all there to celebrate you and what you did. Just be yourself, and everything will be fine." The ceremony was being held at the police department headquarters in a large room that had been decorated with flowers and banners. When Claire arrived with the Harrison family, she was stunned to see how many people had come. Police officers in dress uniforms lined the walls. Community leaders and city officials filled the seats. Local news cameras were set up in the back. And in the front row sat the convenience store clerk who had given her the water bottles, along with several people Claire recognized from her time on the streets. Chief Tom Bradley greeted Claire warmly, shaking her hand and thanking her personally for her service to the community. Then he led her to a seat on the stage beside Brett Harrison, who was also in his dress uniform and looking proud and healthy. Max and Duke sat obediently at his feet, their K9 vests gleaming. The ceremony began with the chief giving a speech about courage, selflessness, and the importance of community. He talked about how Claire's actions had reminded everyone in the department why they did the work they did, and how one person's kindness could ripple out and touch countless lives. Then Detective Roberts came forward and gave a detailed account of the rescue, describing how Claire had found Brett and the dogs, how she had worked to free them and get them water, and how she had stayed with them despite her own critical condition. The audience listened in rapt attention, and Claire saw many people wiping their eyes. When it was time to present the award, Chief Bradley called Claire forward. She stood on shaky legs and walked to the center of the stage, where the chief held a framed certificate and a medal. "Claire Mitchell," he said in a voice that carried throughout the room, "on behalf of the Austin Police Department and the citizens of this city, I present you with the Civilian Medal of Valor for your extraordinary courage and selflessness in saving the life of Officer Brett Harrison and K9s Max and Duke. Your actions represent the very best of humanity, and you are a true hero." The room erupted in applause as the chief placed the medal around Claire's neck and shook her hand. Then Brett stood and joined them. And suddenly Max and Duke were there too, jumping up to greet Claire with enthusiasm that made everyone laugh. The photographers captured the moment, and Claire knew this was an image she would treasure forever. But the ceremony wasn't over. Chief Bradley held up his hand for quiet and then smiled at Claire. "We have a few surprises for you, Claire. First, the Austin Police Department has established a scholarship fund in your name that will cover your college tuition and expenses when you're ready to pursue higher education. Second, the community has raised over $50,000 in donations specifically designated to help you build your future. This money will be held in trust for you, available when you need it for housing, education, transportation, or whatever else will help you succeed." Claire couldn't breathe. $50,000? A college scholarship? It was too much, too generous, too overwhelming. And finally, the chief continued, his smile growing wider, "We have someone here who wanted to say a few words." From the side of the stage walked a man in his 50s wearing a business suit. Claire didn't recognize him at first, but then he introduced himself as Michael Stevens, the owner of a popular restaurant chain in Austin. "Claire," Michael said, addressing her directly, "your story has touched my heart in ways I can't fully express. I built my business from nothing, starting as a dishwasher and working my way up. I know what it's like to struggle, to have people doubt you, to wonder if you'll ever make it. When I heard about what you did, how you put others before yourself even when you had every reason to think only of your own survival, I knew I had to do something." He paused, and the room was completely silent. "I'm offering you a part-time job at my restaurant once you're ready to start working. But more than that, I'm committing to mentor you in business and life. I want to help you discover your potential and achieve your dreams, whatever they may be. And I'm establishing a foundation in your honor that will help other homeless youth get the support and opportunities they need to succeed." The applause this time was deafening. Claire looked out at the crowd of people cheering for her, celebrating her, believing in her, and she couldn't hold back the tears anymore. They streamed down her face as she stood there on the stage, surrounded by kindness and generosity she had never thought possible. When she finally had a chance to speak, she stepped up to the microphone with trembling hands. "I don't know what to say," she began. her voice shaking. "A few weeks ago, I was sleeping in abandoned buildings and wondering if I would survive another day. I felt invisible, like nobody cared if I existed or not. But then I found Officer Harrison and Max and Duke, and I did the only thing I could do. I helped. That's all. I just helped because it was the right thing to do." She paused, gathering her thoughts and her courage. "What I've learned from all of this is that kindness is more powerful than anything else in the world. My parents taught me that, and even though they are gone, that lesson stayed with me. When you help someone else, even when you have nothing to give, you create something beautiful. You create hope. And hope is what we all need to keep going." She looked directly at Brett Harrison, who was smiling at her with tears in his eyes. "Officer Harrison, you and your family gave me back my life. You gave me a home and a future. The whole community has shown me more love and support than I ever dreamed possible. I promise I will work hard, I will make you proud, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to pay forward the kindness you've all shown me. Thank you. Thank you so much." The standing ovation lasted several minutes, and Claire stood there taking it all in, letting the love and support wash over her. This was really happening. This was her new life. And it was just beginning. What would you do if you were given a second chance after losing everything? Leave a comment and subscribe to follow Claire's inspiring journey. 2 months after the ceremony, Claire found herself standing outside the Austin Community Homeless Shelter on a cool evening in late October. She had come here once before, back when she was living on the streets, but the staff had been overwhelmed and couldn't offer her a bed. She had understood then, had known they were doing the best they could with limited resources. Now she was back, but this time as a volunteer. Rachel Cooper, the shelter coordinator, greeted Claire with a warm hug. Rachel was a woman in her early 60s with gray hair and kind eyes, and she had been working with homeless populations for over 20 years. "We're so glad to have you here, Claire," Rachel said as she led her inside. "Your story has inspired so many people, but I think your presence here will inspire our clients even more. They need to see that change is possible, that there's hope for a better future." The shelter was busy that evening, filled with people who had nowhere else to go. Claire saw families with small children, elderly individuals, veterans, and young people not much older than herself. She saw her own reflection in their faces, remembered what it felt like to be hungry and scared and alone. Rachel put Claire to work helping serve dinner, and as she ladled soup into bowls and handed out sandwiches, she made a point of talking to everyone who came through the line. She learned their names, asked about their situations, and most importantly, listened to their stories. She knew from experience how invisible homeless people felt, how society often looked right through them as if they didn't exist. "This is really good soup," an older man named George told her, his weathered face breaking into a smile. "You're doing a good thing here, young lady." "So are you," Claire replied. "You're surviving, and that takes strength." She met a young mother named Kelly who was there with her 2 small children. Kelly had lost her job and her apartment within the same month, and now she was trying to figure out how to get back on her feet while keeping her kids safe and fed. "I'm so ashamed," Kelly whispered when they had a moment alone. "I never thought I'd end up in a place like this. I worked hard my whole life, did everything right, and now look at me." Claire touched her arm gently. "There's no shame in needing help. I lived on the streets for 8 months after my parents died. I know what it feels like to lose everything. But I also know that things can get better. People do care, and there are opportunities out there if we don't give up." She told Kelly about the Harrisons, about the community support, about the second chance she had been given. And she saw hope flicker in Kelly's eyes, saw her shoulders straighten just a little bit. After dinner service was over, Rachel asked Claire if she would be willing to speak to the group about her experience. Claire agreed, though her stomach churned with nervousness. She stood in front of about 40 people gathered in the common area and told them her story. She didn't sugarcoat the hard parts, didn't pretend that being homeless had been anything other than terrifying and difficult. But she also emphasized the kindness she had encountered, the unexpected help that had come from unlikely sources, and the power of not giving up. "I know how easy it is to lose hope," Claire said, looking around the room at all the tired, worried faces. "I know what it's like to wonder if tomorrow will be better or just more of the same struggle. But I'm standing here to tell you that change is possible. Miracles do happen. People do care. You just have to keep going, keep trying, and be ready to accept help when it comes. A young man in his 20s raised his hand. But how do you know who to trust? How do you know if someone really wants to help or if they're just going to take advantage of you? It was a fair question, one Claire had asked herself many times. You use your instincts, she answered. You pay attention to whether people's actions match their words. And yes, sometimes you might get hurt or disappointed. But that's better than closing yourself off completely and missing out on genuine kindness. When Officer Harrison's family offered to help me, I was scared. I thought it was too good to be true. But I decided to take a chance, and it changed my life. She continued volunteering at the shelter twice a week, and true to his word, Michael Stevens hired her to work part-time at one of his restaurants on the weekends. The work was hard, long hours on her feet, but Claire threw herself into it with determination. She was learning about food service, about customer interaction, about responsibility and reliability. Michael often pulled her aside to teach her about business concepts, about managing money, about setting goals and working toward them. You've got natural instincts for this, Michael told her one Saturday afternoon. You connect with people, you work hard, and you're always looking for ways to improve. Those are the qualities that build successful businesses and successful lives. At home with the Harrisons, Claire was thriving. Her online classes were going well, and she was on track to get her high school diploma by the end of the year. Sophie and Ben treated her like the big sister they had always wanted, and Claire found herself caring for them deeply. Jennifer was helping her think about college and career paths, exploring what Claire might want to study. Have you thought about social work? Jennifer asked one evening as they looked at college brochures together. You have such a gift for connecting with people who are struggling. You could make a real difference in that field. Claire considered this. The idea of helping others professionally, of being able to provide the kind of support she wished she'd had when she first became homeless, appealed to her greatly. I think I'd like that, she said slowly. I know what it's like to need help and not know where to find it. Maybe I could be that person for others. As the weeks passed, Claire also stayed in close contact with the police department. She visited Brett at work sometimes, bringing lunch and playing with Max and Duke. The three of them had formed a special bond, and the dogs always got excited when they saw her coming. Detective Roberts kept Claire updated on the investigation into Brett's attack. 3 suspects had been arrested, all members of a drug operation that had been using the abandoned lot for meetings. They had seen Brett as a threat to their business and had decided to eliminate him in a way that wouldn't directly connect back to them. The case was moving forward, and it looked like all 3 would face serious charges. Justice is being served, Angela told Claire. And a big part of that is because you were brave enough to help when you could have just walked away. You didn't just save Brett's life. You helped us catch dangerous criminals who were hurting this community. On Thanksgiving, the Harrison family invited Claire to help cook the meal and celebrate with them. Claire had been dreading the holiday, knowing it would be the first one without her parents. But as she stood in the kitchen with Jennifer, preparing turkey and stuffing and all the traditional dishes, she felt a bittersweet mix of sadness and gratitude. They would be so proud of you, Jennifer said quietly, somehow knowing exactly what Claire was thinking. Your parents raised an incredible daughter. The kindness and courage you showed came from them, from the values they taught you. They are still with you in that way. Claire wiped her eyes and nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. Later, as the family gathered around the table and each person said what they were thankful for, Claire found her voice. I'm thankful for second chances, she said. I'm thankful for all of you, for giving me a home and a family when I had nothing. I'm thankful for the community that rallied around me. And I'm thankful that I was in the right place at the right time to help Officer Harrison and Max and Duke. Everything that's happened since then has been the greatest blessing of my life. Winter settled over Austin with cool, crisp days and occasional cold snaps that reminded everyone that even Texas had seasons. Claire woke up each morning in her comfortable bed at the Harrison house, still sometimes surprised that this was her life now. She had completed her online coursework and officially earned her high school diploma in December, a milestone celebrated with a small party and lots of proud tears from Jennifer. Next stop, college, Jennifer had said, hugging Claire tightly. I knew you could do it. The new year brought new opportunities. Michael Stevens called Claire into his office at the restaurant one January afternoon, and she could tell from his expression that something important was about to happen. "Sit down, Claire," he said, gesturing to a chair across from his desk. "I have something I want to discuss with you." Claire sat, her heart beating faster. Had she done something wrong at work? Was he disappointed in her somehow? But Michael smiled warmly, putting her fears to rest. "You've been working for me for 3 months now, and I've been incredibly impressed with your performance. You show up on time, you work hard, you treat customers with respect and kindness, and you're always looking for ways to help your coworkers. Those qualities are rare and valuable." "Thank you," Claire said, not sure where this was going. "I've been talking with the foundation I established in your honor, the one dedicated to helping homeless youth. We want to expand the program, create more opportunities for young people to get back on their feet. But we need someone who truly understands what these kids are going through, someone who can connect with them and guide them. I'd like to offer you a position as the Youth Outreach Coordinator." Claire stared at him in shock. "A position? You mean like a real job? Not just part-time restaurant work?" "A real job with a real salary, benefits, and the opportunity to make a genuine difference in people's lives," Michael confirmed. "You'd work with social workers and counselors to identify homeless youth who need help. You'd connect them with resources, mentor them, advocate for them. You'd be the person you wished you'd had when you were struggling." The offer was overwhelming in the best possible way. This was more than just a job. This was a chance to turn her painful experience into something meaningful, to help others avoid the suffering she had endured. "I don't have a college degree," Claire pointed out, though she desperately wanted to say yes. "I just got my high school diploma last month." "You have something better than a degree right now. You have lived experience and genuine compassion. We'll support you going to college part-time if you want to eventually get a social work degree. But for this position, your personal understanding of homelessness is more valuable than any credential." "Then yes," Claire said, her voice strong and clear. "Yes, I'd love to do this. Thank you for believing in me." Michael stood and shook her hand. "You start next month. That gives you time to transition from restaurant work and get trained on the Foundation's programs and resources. Welcome to the team, Claire." That evening, Claire shared the news with the Harrison family over dinner, and the celebration was loud and joyful. Brett raised his glass in a toast, and even Max and Duke seemed to sense that something good had happened, wagging their tails and dancing around the table. "This is amazing, Claire," Jennifer said, beaming with pride. "You're going to change so many lives." "I hope so," Claire replied. "I just keep thinking about all the kids out there right now who are where I was a few months ago. Scared, alone, thinking nobody cares. If I can reach even a few of them and help them find hope, it'll all be worth it." The next few weeks were busy with training and preparation for her new role. Claire learned about the different resources available in Austin for homeless youth, from shelters and food banks to mental health services and job training programs. She met with social workers and counselors who taught her about trauma-informed care and how to build trust with young people who had every reason to be suspicious of adults. She also continued her volunteer work at the homeless shelter, which now took on new meaning as she prepared for her professional role. Rachel Cooper was thrilled when she heard about Claire's new job. "This is perfect," Rachel said. "You'll be able to bridge the gap between the kids on the streets and the systems that are supposed to help them. You'll speak their language, understand their fears. That's invaluable." In February, the investigation into Brett Harrison's attack reached its conclusion. All 3 suspects were convicted on multiple charges, including assault on a police officer, animal cruelty, and attempted murder. The sentences were substantial, and while Claire knew that prison time wouldn't undo what had happened, she felt a sense of closure knowing that justice had been served. Detective Roberts called to give her the news personally. "We couldn't have built such a strong case without your testimony and the evidence you helped preserve by calling for help so quickly. You didn't just save Brett's life that day. You made sure his attackers would be held accountable." Claire also received unexpected news from the hospital. The billing department had reached out to let her know that not only had the police department's community fund covered all of her medical expenses, but several anonymous donors had also contributed extra money specifically designated for her future needs. Between that, the funds raised at the ceremony, and her salary from the new job, Claire suddenly found herself in a financial position she had never imagined possible. "I want to give some of this money to the shelter," Claire told Brett and Jennifer one evening. "I know what it's like to need help, and I know they are always struggling with funding. It feels right to pay it forward." "That's a beautiful gesture," Brett said. "But make sure you're also saving for your own future. College, a car, eventually your own place. It's okay to take care of yourself too." Claire nodded, understanding the wisdom in his words. It was about balance, helping others while also building a stable foundation for herself. Both things could be true at the same time. On a Saturday in late February, Claire started her first official day as Youth Outreach Coordinator for the Michael Stevens Foundation. She arrived at the Foundation's offices, a converted house near downtown Austin, and met with her small team. There was a part-time social worker, an administrative assistant, and a counselor who volunteered several hours a week. Together, they would work to identify and help homeless youth throughout the Austin area. "Our goal is simple," Claire told the team during their first meeting. "We find kids who are struggling, and we do everything in our power to give them hope and opportunity. We don't give up on them, even when things get difficult. We show them that someone cares, that their lives matter, that change is possible." The work was challenging from the start. Many of the young people they encountered were distrustful, having been let down by adults and systems too many times before. But Claire's personal story opened doors. When she told them she had been homeless too, that she had slept in abandoned buildings and gone hungry, they listened. When she showed them the path she had taken from desperation to stability, they began to believe that maybe, just maybe, they could do it too. By spring, the foundation had helped 12 young people find stable housing, 6 had enrolled in job training programs, and 3 were working on their high school diplomas just like Claire had done. Each success felt like a personal victory, validation that her suffering hadn't been meaningless. It had prepared her for this work, given her the empathy and understanding necessary to truly help others. One evening, as Claire sat in her room at the Harrison house working on case files, her phone rang. It was Kelly, the young mother she had met at the homeless shelter months ago. "Claire, I wanted you to be the first to know," Kelly said, her voice bubbling with excitement. "I got a job. A real job with benefits and everything. And I found an apartment for me and the kids. We're moving in next week. We're going to be okay." Claire felt tears of joy spring to her eyes. "Kelly, that's wonderful. I'm so proud of you." "I wouldn't have made it without your encouragement that night at the shelter," Kelly said. "You gave me hope when I had none left. Thank you for not giving up on us." After they hung up, Claire sat in her room thinking about how far she had come and how many lives had been touched by that one decision to help Officer Harrison on a blazing hot day. It was like throwing a stone in a pond and watching the ripples spread outward, each wave touching new shores, creating new possibilities. Kindness really was the most powerful force in the world. 1 year after the day Claire had found Officer Brett Harrison and K9s Max and Duke tied in the blazing sun, the Michael Stevens Foundation hosted a community celebration to mark the anniversary and showcase the progress that had been made. The event was held in a park in downtown Austin on a beautiful April evening, with food trucks, live music, and booths from various organizations dedicated to helping homeless populations. Claire stood near the Foundation's booth, greeting people and talking about the work they had been doing. She wore a bright green dress and a genuine smile, her whole demeanor radiating confidence and purpose. It was hard to believe she was the same person who had been sleeping in abandoned buildings just 12 months ago. The Harrison family was there, of course, with Sophie and Ben running around with face paint and cotton candy. Jennifer stood beside Claire, helping hand out information about the Foundation's programs. Brett was scheduled to speak later, along with Chief Bradley and Michael Stevens. "I can't believe it's been a year," Jennifer said, watching the crowd of people milling about. "Look at everything that's changed, Claire. Look at all the good that's come from that terrible day." Claire nodded, taking it all in. In the past year, she had helped over 30 young people find stable housing and support services. The foundation had expanded to include mental health counseling, job training partnerships with local businesses, and an emergency fund for youth in crisis. Other organizations had taken notice and started similar programs in their own communities. The ripple effect continued to spread. "Claire," a familiar voice called out, and Claire turned to see Kelly approaching with her 2 children. They looked healthy and happy, the kids wearing clean clothes and big smiles. Kelly pulled Claire into a hug. "We came to support you and say thank you again. The kids wanted to see you." Claire knelt down to greet the children, who shyly presented her with a handmade card covered in crayon drawings and glitter. "This is beautiful," Claire said, genuinely touched. "Thank you so much. How are things going?" "Really well," Kelly said. "I got promoted at work and the kids are doing great in school. We're actually saving money now. Can you believe it? I never thought we'd get here, but we did." Stories like Kelly's were becoming more common, and each one filled Claire with renewed purpose. She had found her calling in life, discovered that her greatest pain could become her greatest strength when channeled toward helping others. As the sun began to set, the formal program started. Chief Bradley spoke first, recounting the events of that August day and how Claire's bravery had saved 3 lives. Then Brett Harrison took the microphone, Max and Duke sitting obediently at his feet in their dress vests. "A year ago, I was minutes away from death," Brett said, his voice carrying across the crowd. 3 of us were left in the sun to die, and if Claire Mitchell hadn't stumbled into that abandoned lot looking for shade, I wouldn't be standing here today. My wife would be a widow. My kids wouldn't have their father. Max and Duke would be gone. One person's choice to help changed everything." He gestured for Claire to join him on the stage, and she walked up, her heart pounding but her steps steady. Brett put his arm around her shoulders. "Claire didn't have to help us," Brett continued. "She had every reason to think only of herself, to focus on her own survival. But that's not who she is. She risked her own life because she believes in the fundamental goodness of helping others. And because of her courage and kindness, dozens of young people now have hope and opportunity they didn't have before. The foundation bearing her name is changing lives every single day." The crowd erupted in applause, and Claire saw people wiping their eyes throughout the audience. Then Michael Stevens stepped forward to make an announcement. "We're here tonight to celebrate Claire's heroism, but also to announce some exciting news. Thanks to generous donations from the community and matching funds from several local businesses, the Michael Stevens Foundation has raised over $2 million to expand our youth services throughout Central Texas. We're opening 3 new resource centers in Austin, San Antonio, and Houston, each one dedicated to helping homeless young people find their way home." The applause was thunderous. Claire felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of what had grown from that single act of kindness on a desperate day. $2 million, 3 new centers, countless lives that would be touched and changed. When it was Claire's turn to speak, she took a deep breath and looked out at the crowd. She saw the Harrisons, her chosen family who had given her everything. She saw Rachel Cooper from the shelter and the convenience store clerk who had given her water bottles that crucial day. She saw Detective Roberts and Detective Miller and dozens of police officers who had supported her journey. She saw Kelly and other young people she had helped through the foundation. She saw her entire community gathered to celebrate hope and kindness. "When I found Officer Harrison and Max and Duke that day, I wasn't thinking about being a hero or changing the world," Claire began. "I was just trying to survive one more day, and then I saw people who needed help even more than I did. So I helped. That's all. I just helped because it was the right thing to do." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "But what happened after that day taught me something important. Kindness isn't just about one moment or one action. It's about creating a cycle where people who receive help feel inspired to help others in return. Officer Harrison and his family gave me a home when I had nowhere to go. The community gave me support and resources. Michael Stevens gave me a job and a purpose. And now I get to pass that kindness forward every single day through my work with homeless youth." She looked directly at the young people gathered near the front, teenagers and young adults who were currently receiving services from the foundation. "To any young person who's struggling right now, who feels invisible or forgotten, I want you to know something. You matter. Your life has value. And even though things might seem impossible right now, change really is possible. I'm living proof of that. 1 year ago, I had nothing. Today, I have everything that truly matters. Family, purpose, hope, and the chance to make a difference. You can have that too, if you don't give up. She turned back to the broader audience. Thank you to everyone who has supported me and believed in me. Thank you to the police department and Chief Bradley for honoring my actions and helping me build a new life. Thank you to Michael Stevens for seeing potential in me and giving me the opportunity to help others. Thank you to Brett and Jennifer Harrison for opening your home and your hearts to a homeless stranger. And thank you to this incredible community for showing me that there is still so much good in the world. As Claire stepped away from the microphone, the crowd rose in a standing ovation. Max and Duke bounded up to her, tails wagging, and she knelt down to hug them both. Brett and Jennifer joined her on stage, along with Sophie and Ben, and for a moment, Claire was surrounded by the family she had found in the midst of her darkest hour. Later that evening, as the celebration wound down and the crowds dispersed, Claire stood with Brett watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and orange. Do you ever think about what might have happened if you hadn't walked into that lot that day? Brett asked quietly. Sometimes, Claire admitted. But I try not to dwell on the what ifs. I'd rather focus on what did happen and what we've been able to build from it. You've built something remarkable, Claire. You took a tragedy and turned it into hope for so many people. That takes a special kind of strength. Claire smiled, thinking about how far she had come. From a terrified, homeless teenager to a confident young woman with a career helping others. From someone who felt invisible to someone who was making a visible difference in her community. From despair to hope, from darkness to light. My mom used to tell me that our greatest challenges often prepare us for our greatest purposes, Claire said softly. I didn't understand what she meant back then, but I do now. Everything I went through, as hard as it was, taught me things I needed to know to do this work. It gave me empathy and understanding that I couldn't have learned any other way. She sounds like she was a wise woman, Brett said. She'd be incredibly proud of you. I hope so, Claire replied, her eyes misty. I really hope so. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Claire felt a profound sense of peace settle over her. She had survived the worst that life could throw at her, and she had come out the other side stronger, kinder, and more determined than ever to make a difference. The girl who had once felt invisible was now a beacon of hope for others who were struggling in the darkness. And it had all started with one simple choice on one impossibly hot day. The choice to help. The choice to care. The choice to believe that kindness mattered, even when everything seemed hopeless. That choice had saved 3 lives in the moment, but its impact had rippled outward to touch hundreds of others. And the ripples would continue spreading, year after year, as each person who was helped went on to help others in turn. This was the power of kindness. This was the miracle of second chances. This was what happened when one person chose to be brave, to be generous, to be good, even in the midst of their own suffering. And this was just the beginning of Claire's story. The best chapters were still to come.